My name is Norma Jenkins, and at 67 years old, I never imagined my retirement would include this nightmare. The Portland home where I raised my son Adam for 40 years was my sanctuary after being widowed. 3 weeks after Adam's wedding to Stephanie, they appeared at my door with a notary. "We've sold this house," she announced coldly. "We found you a nice nursing home." The shock nearly stopped my heart, but my response stopped her cold. If you're watching this, please let me know where you're tuning in from. Hit that subscribe button to hear how I uncovered my daughter-in-law's scheme and turned the tables when she least expected it. Becoming a widow at 35 wasn't in my life plans. My husband Richard's sudden heart attack left me alone to raise our 5-year-old son Adam and somehow keep our modest 3-bedroom house in what was then an average Portland neighborhood. Those early years were a blur of double shifts at Portland Memorial Hospital. As an ER nurse, I'd work from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., then come home to check Adam's homework before collapsing into bed. Our elderly neighbor Martha would watch him after school until I returned a kindness I could never fully repay. "Your daddy would be so proud of you," I'd tell Adam every night before bed. He had Richard's thoughtful brown eyes and quiet intelligence. While other single mothers complained about rebellious children, Adam was my rock. He understood when I couldn't make his baseball games because of work and never complained when dinner was just sandwiches again. The neighborhood changed around us over the decades. What was once a working-class area became increasingly desirable as Portland grew. Houses on our street started selling for amounts that seemed absurd to me. My humble home, purchased for $85,000 in 1980, was now worth nearly $900,000 according to a realtor friend. I'd paid off the mortgage 15 years ago, a day I celebrated by framing the final statement and hanging it in my kitchen. "You'll never have to worry about a roof over your head," I'd promised myself. When I finally retired at 62 after 37 years of nursing, I felt I'd earned my peaceful existence. My pension, Social Security, and modest savings meant I could live comfortably without financial stress. I started a small garden in the backyard, joined a book club, and volunteered at the community center, teaching health classes for seniors. Life was good. Adam and I had always been close. Even when he went away to Oregon State for his computer science degree, he'd call me every Sunday without fail. After college, he secured a position at a tech startup in Portland, allowing him to visit regularly. Our Sunday dinners became a tradition I cherished. He'd bring interesting wines I couldn't afford, and I'd cook his favorite meals. We'd talk about everything from politics to his latest coding projects. I noticed the subtle changes in Adam about 2 years ago. Our Sunday dinners became less frequent. When he did visit, he seemed distracted, checking his phone constantly. His usual enthusiasm about his work dimmed. "Is everything okay at your job?" I asked one evening after he barely touched his favorite pot roast. "Just some restructuring," he answered vaguely. "Nothing to worry about." But I did worry. My son had always been an open book to me. Now I felt pages were being torn out, leaving gaps in our story. When I directly asked if he needed financial help, his response was uncharacteristically defensive. "I'm 40 years old, Mom. I think I can handle my own finances." I backed off, not wanting to push him away further. I didn't know then that financial troubles were indeed brewing in Adam's life, troubles that would create the perfect storm for what was coming next. The first time Adam mentioned Stephanie, it seemed like an afterthought. We were having one of our increasingly rare Sunday dinners when he casually said, "I'm seeing someone new. Her name is Stephanie. I think you'd like her." Adam had dated occasionally through the years, but never seemed to find someone who clicked with his introspective nature. At 40, I'd begun to think he might remain single, which worried me slightly. I wanted someone to care for him when I was gone. "I'd love to meet her," I responded enthusiastically. "Why don't you bring her to dinner next Sunday?" The woman who arrived at my door the following week was not what I expected. Stephanie Walker was striking in a calculated way with expertly highlighted blonde hair, immaculate makeup, and a designer dress that seemed excessive for a casual dinner. At around 35, she was significantly younger than Adam, but it was her confidence that stood out most. She entered my home as if assessing its value rather than visiting a boyfriend's mother. Yet her charm was undeniable. She complimented my quaint decor, seemed fascinated by family photos, and asked thoughtful questions about my nursing career. She was particularly interested when I mentioned the house had been paid off. "That's the dream, isn't it?" she said, glancing around. "To own something outright in this market. You're sitting on a gold mine, Norma." When Adam went to the kitchen to open more wine, Stephanie leaned closer. "This neighborhood has appreciated tremendously. A client of mine just sold a smaller house down the street for over $1 million. "A client?" I asked. "I'm in real estate investment," she explained. "I help people maximize their property assets." Throughout dinner, I noticed how Stephanie subtly dominated the conversation and how Adam deferred to her opinions. When he mentioned a potential work trip, she immediately vetoed it as unnecessary to your career trajectory. He simply nodded. After they left, something felt off, but I dismissed my concerns. Adam seemed happy, and wasn't that what mattered? Over the next few months, Stephanie became a regular presence. I noticed her questions becoming increasingly personal during her third visit. "Have you thought about your estate planning, Norma?" she asked while helping me clear dishes. "It's so important to have things in order." "I have a simple will," I replied, surprised by the direct question. "Everything goes to Adam, of course." "But have you considered adding him to your deed now?" she suggested. "It could save so much hassle with probate later. Plus, there are tax advantages." Before I could respond, she smoothly changed the subject. The pattern continued. Each visit included some reference to my house neighborhood property values or suggestions about financial decisions. Around the same time, Adam began mentioning cash flow problems. "The tech industry is volatile right now," he explained when I noticed his new reluctance to pick up dinner checks. "We're between funding rounds at work." I offered to help, but he declined. Yet a week later, after a private conversation with Stephanie, he asked if he could borrow $5,000 for investment opportunities. I gave him the money without question, happy to help my son. When similar requests followed, I began to wonder about Stephanie's influence. 4 months into their relationship, Adam announced they were engaged. The diamond on Stephanie's finger was far larger than I knew Adam could afford. "Isn't it happening rather quickly?" I ventured carefully. "When you know," Stephanie answered for him, squeezing his hand. "We want to start our life together as soon as possible." As wedding plans commenced, Stephanie pushed for venues and vendors far beyond Adam's means. When I expressed concern about the mounting expenses, she suggested a solution. "You know, Norma, you could help secure Adam's future by adding him to your house deed. It would give us collateral for a better loan rate on our own place eventually." I declined as gently as possible. I'd rather help with the wedding directly. Something flashed in her eyes before her smile returned. "That's generous of you. We appreciate anything you can contribute." I contributed $20,000 to their wedding fund, nearly depleting my modest savings. It seemed a small price to ensure my son's happiness. The red flags were there, waving frantically. Stephanie's excessive interest in my property, her controlling behavior with Adam, inconsistent stories about her family, and past Adam's growing financial dependence. But like many mothers, I wanted so badly to believe in my son's happiness that I ignored what was right in front of me. The Westlake Country Club was an extravagant choice for the wedding venue, costing far more than Adam's increasingly unstable job could support. Yet Stephanie insisted it was the only acceptable location, dismissing more affordable options as tacky. Standing in the ornate reception hall decorated with thousands of dollars in floral arrangements, I felt increasingly uneasy. The guest list was oddly lopsided. My side included longtime friends, former hospital colleagues, and distant relatives who'd traveled to celebrate Adam. Stephanie's side was sparse, with just a handful of what she called industry connections. "Stephanie's family couldn't make it," Adam explained when I asked. "They're estranged, difficult childhood." Throughout the ceremony, Adam seemed distant, almost robotic, reciting his vows in a monotone. I initially attributed his behavior to wedding nerves, but there was something in his vacant expression that reminded me of patients I'd seen in the ER who were heavily medicated. During the reception, I overheard a fragment of conversation between Stephanie and a sharp-dressed man I didn't recognize. They stood in a corner, speaking intently. "Everything's on track for closing," the man said. "Once we get the old lady out, we can flip it immediately. The developers are already interested." Stephanie nodded. "Just stick to the timeline we discussed. 2 weeks post-honeymoon should be perfect." They noticed me approaching and immediately switched to loud congratulations about the beautiful ceremony. The man quickly excused himself before I could be introduced. Later that night, Stephanie accidentally left her small purse in my car after I drove them to the hotel. Being considerate, I brought it to her room. When I knocked, there was no answer, so I peeked inside the purse for her room key to leave it at the desk. What I found instead was a folder of financial paperwork that included a real estate listing agreement with my address on it, dated for 2 weeks in the future. Before I could process what I was seeing, I heard voices in the hallway and quickly closed the purse, leaving it with the front desk instead. Sleep eluded me that night. Could I have misunderstood what I saw? Why would there be paperwork about my house in Stephanie's purse? I decided to speak with Adam after he returned from his honeymoon in Cancun, an extravagant trip that again seemed beyond his financial means. During their week away, Adam called me only twice. Both conversations strangely stilted and brief. His voice sounded slurred during our second call. "Are you drinking honey?" I asked, concerned. "Just some medicine for a stomach bug," he replied. "Stephanie's taking good care of me." They returned 3 days early without explanation. When I tried calling Adam, my calls went straight to voicemail. This was unprecedented in our relationship, even during his most busy work periods. A full week passed without any contact. Concerned, I drove by Adam's apartment one evening, but his car wasn't there. On a hunch, I called his workplace, only to be told by an uncomfortable receptionist that Adam no longer worked with the company. My neighbor Barbara provided the next piece of the puzzle when she mentioned seeing Adam and Stephanie meeting with real estate agents outside my house. "I assumed you knew," she said, surprised by my reaction. "They were taking photos and measurements of the exterior." A sense of dread settled over me as pieces began clicking into place. Something was very wrong, but I still couldn't imagine the full extent of what was happening. I thought perhaps Adam was planning to buy the house from me as a surprise, a misguided attempt to keep it in the family, while providing me with retirement funds. The truth, as I would soon discover, was far more sinister. The knock on my door came at 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, exactly 3 weeks after the wedding. Through the peephole, I saw Adam, Stephanie, and a man I didn't recognize carrying a briefcase. Adam's expression was blank, his normally vibrant eyes dull and unfocused. My hand trembled slightly as I opened the door. "Adam, I've been so worried about you." Before he could respond, Stephanie stepped forward. "We need to talk, Norma. This is Mr. Patterson, our notary." The formal introduction sent a chill through me. Notaries were for official documents for signing away things of value. I led them to my living room, hyper-aware of how Stephanie's eyes cataloged every item in my house. "Can I get anyone coffee?" I offered, trying to maintain normalcy. "Let's just get to business," Stephanie replied sharply. "We don't have all day." The notary placed several documents on my coffee table. His uncomfortable expression suggested he sensed the tension in the room. "What is this about?" I asked, looking directly at Adam. It was Stephanie who answered. "We've made some necessary arrangements for your future, Norma." Her voice had a rehearsed quality. "As you know, this house is far too large for a single elderly woman. The maintenance alone is becoming beyond your capabilities." My son remained silent, staring at a point somewhere over my shoulder. Stephanie continued, sliding a document toward me. "This is confirmation that the house has been listed for sale. We already have a buyer, and closing is scheduled for 2 weeks from now." I stared at the paper, my nursing training keeping me outwardly calm despite my racing heart. "I don't understand. This is my house. I haven't agreed to sell anything." "Actually," Stephanie's smile turned predatory, "the house is jointly owned by you and Adam. He added his name to the deed 3 months ago, if you recall." With horror, I did recall. During wedding preparations, Adam had brought papers for me to sign, explaining they were insurance documents requiring my signature. There had been several pages, and trusting my son, I'd signed without reading everything carefully. A mistake I now realized had been catastrophic. "As joint tenant with right of survivorship," the notary interjected nervously, "Mr. Jenkins has equal rights to sell the property." "And we found you a lovely place at Sunset Gardens Assisted Living," Stephanie added. "Your pension should cover the basic package. We've scheduled the movers for next week." I looked at my son, searching for any sign of the Adam I knew. "Is this what you want?" His eyes briefly met mine, showing a flicker of something shame. Fear before Stephanie answered for him. "It's what's best for everyone. You're getting older, Norma. We can't have you falling down those stairs or forgetting to turn off the stove." I was in perfect health, and we both knew it. This had nothing to do with my well-being, and everything to do with nearly $1 million in real estate equity. The notary shifted uncomfortably. "Mrs. Jenkins, I'll need your signature acknowledging you've been informed of the sale." Something in me snapped back to clarity. 40 years as an ER nurse had taught me to function in crisis. My hands remained steady as I took the document, pretending to read it thoroughly. "Well," I said finally, my voice remarkably calm, "if this is happening, I suppose we should make it official. But before I sign, we'll need to stop at the police station first." I looked directly at Stephanie. "They're very interested in some information I've been gathering." For the first time, Stephanie's confident facade cracked. "Police? What are you talking about?" I didn't elaborate, letting her imagination do the work. In truth, I had no evidence of wrongdoing yet, but her reaction told me everything I needed to know. "Just a formality," I said vaguely. "Given the circumstances." Adam stirred, looking confused. "What police, Mom?" Stephanie recovered quickly, placing a restraining hand on his arm. "Your mother is confused. There's no need for police involvement in a simple property sale." Her eyes narrowed at me. "Unless you're planning to be difficult." "Not at all," I replied, handing the documents back unsigned. "I just need 24 hours to pack some essentials before I cooperate. You can understand that, surely." After a tense silence, Stephanie nodded. "Fine. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Have the paperwork ready." She practically dragged Adam toward the door, his movements unsettlingly compliant. As the door closed behind them, my calm facade crumbled. I sank to the floor, hands shaking violently now. They were going to take everything from me, my home, my security, my dignity. And somehow they'd turned my own son against me. I allowed myself exactly 5 minutes to fall apart before standing up. I had 24 hours to figure out what was really happening and how to fight back. The clock was ticking. The moment the door closed behind them, I sprang into action. My hands shook as I dialed Janet Fisher, my closest friend, and a retired legal secretary who had worked for a prominent elder law attorney for 30 years. "They want to put me in a nursing home and sell my house," I explained, my voice cracking despite my efforts to remain composed. "Janet, I think Stephanie has done something to Adam. He's not himself." Janet's response was immediate and practical. "Don't sign anything. I'm calling Bernard." Bernard Goldstein had been her boss and was now semi-retired, but still took cases that interested him. While waiting for Janet's callback, I did something I had never done before. I searched through Adam's childhood bedroom where he occasionally still kept things. In the back of his old desk drawer, I found a stack of mail he had apparently been hiding. Final notice bills, credit card statements showing accounts nearly maxed out, and a termination letter from his company dated 6 months ago, long before he had told me about any restructuring. The most disturbing discovery was a bank statement showing his accounts nearly depleted, with multiple large transfers to an account labeled SW Investments. Stephanie Walker. As I continued searching, a prescription bottle rolled from between some papers. The medication was a powerful anti-anxiety drug I recognized from my nursing days, but the concerning part was that it wasn't prescribed to Adam. The name on the bottle was James Mercer, someone I'd never heard of. Janet called back just as I was photographing these documents with my phone. "Bernard can see you at 4 p.m. today," she said, "and I've been doing some digging of my own. This isn't Stephanie's first rodeo." Janet had called a paralegal friend who ran a background check. Stephanie Walker had previously been Stephanie Collins, Stephanie Brennan, and originally Stephanie Mercer. She had been married 3 times before Adam, each marriage to a man with significant assets, and each ending within 2 years. "There's more," Janet continued. "Her brother James Mercer was arrested 2 years ago for involvement in a real estate scam targeting seniors. He's currently serving time." The prescription bottle suddenly made horrifying sense. Stephanie was using her brother's medications to drug my son. I called Marcus Brown, next Adam's college roommate and closest friend, who now worked in cybersecurity. We had always remained close, and he was as concerned as I was about Adam's recent behavior. "I've been trying to reach him for months," Marcus confessed. He stopped responding to texts after he started dating Stephanie. When I explained the situation, Marcus offered to help access Adam's email and phone records. Under normal circumstances, I would never violate my son's privacy this way, but these were desperate times. Marcus came over that afternoon before my appointment with Bernard. Using technical skills I didn't understand, he was able to recover deleted emails from Adam's cloud backup that revealed the extent of Stephanie's manipulation. Emails showed how she had isolated him from friends, convinced him his job was beneath him, leading to his resignation, and slowly taken control of his finances. There were also messages between Stephanie and someone named Victor discussing their Portland property acquisition and moving the asset to assisted living, chilling references to my home and me. Most disturbing were text messages showing Adam's growing dependency on medication Stephanie provided for his anxiety, and her threats to leave him when he suggested cutting back. By the time I met with Bernard Goldstein, I had a folder of evidence suggesting a deliberate scheme to defraud both Adam and me. "What they've done is reprehensible," Bernard said after reviewing everything, "but not entirely illegal. Adding Adam to the deed was legal because you signed the papers regardless of whether you understood what you were signing." My heart sank, but he continued. "However, if Adam was being drugged or coerced, that changes everything. And if we can prove Stephanie intended to defraud you from the beginning, we have a case for elder abuse and fraud." Bernard immediately filed for an emergency injunction to prevent the sale of the house and contacted a detective in the Elder Crimes Unit. We set up a meeting for the following morning, just before Stephanie and Adam were due to return. That night, I installed small security cameras Janet brought over, hiding them in strategic locations throughout my living room. If Stephanie made any incriminating statements during our next meeting, we would have it recorded. I also sent Adam a carefully worded text. "I have your medication bottle, the one with James Mercer's name. We need to talk before tomorrow. Alone." The response was almost immediate, not from Adam's phone, but from Stephanie's. "Adam is resting. We'll discuss everything tomorrow." But an hour later, I received a text from Adam's original number. "Back door, midnight. Don't tell S." At 11:55 p.m., I sat in my darkened kitchen, the back porch light off as Adam had instructed in a follow-up text. My heart raced with both hope and fear. Hope that I could reach my real son beneath whatever influence Stephanie held over him, and fear of what might happen if she discovered our meeting. A soft tap at the back door made me jump. When I opened it, the sight of Adam nearly broke my heart. My son, once vibrant and strong, looked gaunt and disoriented, his eyes darting nervously as he slipped inside. "We don't have much time," he whispered. "She took sleeping pills, but she could wake up." "Adam, what's happening? What has she done to you?" He sank into a kitchen chair, hands trembling. "I don't know anymore, Mom. Everything's foggy. I keep losing time." He rubbed his face. "She gives me pills for anxiety, says I need them, but they make everything worse." I placed the prescription bottle on the table. "These aren't anxiety medications, Adam. Not exactly. In these doses, they're making you compliant suggestible." I recognized the symptoms from my nursing days. Confusion, and then horror dawned on his face. "The house. Mom, did I sign papers about the house?" "You did, and you added your name to my deed." He buried his face in his hands. "I remember her saying it was just precautionary for inheritance purposes. I would never try to take your home." "I know that, honey. The real Adam wouldn't." "There's more," he continued, voice breaking. "She has everything now, my bank accounts, credit cards, and she has something on me, pictures she threatens to release if I don't cooperate. I don't even remember taking them." Dr. Robert Chen Adams' friend from college and now an ER physician arrived shortly after having agreed to help after my frantic call. He took blood and urine samples from Adam while I explained what little we knew about the medications. "I need to get back before she notices I'm gone," Adam said as Dr. Chen finished. "What do we do now?" "Tomorrow when you come with her, follow her lead," I instructed. "Don't let her suspect anything has changed. I have a plan in place." After Adam left, Dr. Chen looked grim. "Based on his symptoms and what you've shown me, I suspect she's been giving him a combination of benzos and possibly something like Rohypnol. In the doses you're describing over months, it could cause significant dependency and cognitive impairment." "Will he recover?" I asked, my voice small. With proper treatment, yes, but he needs to stop taking everything immediately. That's not an option right now, I explained. If Stephanie suspects anything before we're ready, she might disappear with whatever assets she's already taken. Dr. Chen reluctantly agreed to our plan, providing Adam with harmless substitute pills that looked similar to continue the deception for one more day. By morning, Bernard had arranged everything. Detective Sarah Lawson from the Elder Crimes Unit would be monitoring from Janet's house next door, ready to intervene once we had enough recorded evidence. A forensic accountant was already tracking the financial paper trail of Stephanie's previous marriages and Adam's missing funds. At precisely 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and opened the door to the woman who had tried to steal everything from me. Stephanie was dressed impeccably in a designer suit, her predatory smile firmly in place. Adam stood slightly behind her, eyes downcast, but occasionally meeting mine with a clarity I hadn't seen in months. "I trust you've come to your senses overnight," Stephanie began as they entered the living room where hidden cameras were now recording. "The papers just need your signature and we can all move forward." "Actually," I replied, "I've been thinking about my options. Before I sign, I'd like to understand exactly how this will work." My apparent cooperation visibly relaxed Stephanie. She launched into a detailed explanation of how they would help me transition to Sunset Gardens. A facility I had learned overnight had numerous violations for substandard care. "And what happens to the proceeds from my house?" I asked innocently. "Well, legally half belongs to Adam as joint owner," she explained smoothly, "which means it's marital property now. So you and Adam will receive all the money from the sale of my home of 40 years while I get a tiny room in a problematic nursing facility." Stephanie's eyes narrowed at my characterization. "Sunset Gardens is perfectly adequate for someone in your position. You should be grateful we found a solution that works for everyone. And if I refuse to sign," her mask slipped then, just as I'd hoped it would, "that would be unwise. Adam and I could make things very difficult for you. A contested declaration of incompetence is messy, but certainly doable." Adam flinched beside her. It was the opening I needed. "Adam, honey, is this really what you want? To declare your mother incompetent and steal her home?" Before Stephanie could intercept, Adam spoke. "I never wanted any of this, Mom. I'm so sorry." Stephanie grabbed his arm painfully. "Adam is concerned about your cognitive decline. We've documented several instances of confusion and unsafe behavior." "Like what?" I challenged. "Like the time you left the stove on overnight, and when you fell in the shower last month." Events that had never occurred. She was fabricating evidence for a competency hearing. "That's enough," came a voice from the doorway. Detective Lawson stood there, badge displayed, with 2 uniformed officers behind her. "Stephanie Walker, we'd like to ask you some questions regarding potential elder abuse and fraud." What followed was chaos. Stephanie attempted to flee through the back door, only to be intercepted by another officer. She began screaming that this was a misunderstanding, that Adam would confirm everything was above board. Instead, Adam collapsed into tears, the emotional dam breaking, as he detailed months of manipulation, coercion, and drugging. The officers found more prescription medications in Stephanie's purse, along with a flash drive containing what she had threatened were compromising photos of Adam, taken while he was clearly unconscious. As they led Stephanie away, Detective Lawson explained the charges: elder abuse, fraud, administering controlled substances without consent, and blackmail. The evidence from our recording, combined with Adam's testimony and the financial paper trail, would likely result in significant prison time. The look of pure hatred Stephanie gave me as they escorted her to the police car sent shivers down my spine. But for the first time in months, my son's eyes were clear as he hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'll make this right somehow." The months following Stephanie's arrest were both healing and challenging. The legal process to remove Adam's name from my house deed was straightforward given the circumstances, but the emotional reconstruction of our relationship proved more complex. Adam entered an intensive outpatient program to address the physical and psychological dependency created by months of being drugged. The withdrawal symptoms were brutal at first: insomnia, anxiety, tremors, but his doctor assured us his brain chemistry would gradually return to normal. "I can't believe I let this happen," he said during one particularly difficult therapy session I attended with him. All the warning signs were there. "Predators like Stephanie are experts at finding vulnerabilities," his therapist explained. "Your job loss and financial stress made you a target, and the medications reduced your ability to recognize what was happening." Investigation into Stephanie's background revealed a disturbing pattern. Her brother James had indeed been convicted of similar schemes targeting elderly homeowners. Before meeting Adam, Stephanie had married and divorced 3 men, each time walking away with substantial settlements after short marriages. 2 of her ex-husbands came forward after her arrest, describing similar patterns of isolation and manipulation. The prosecutor's office built a comprehensive case. Beyond the charges related to my situation, they uncovered connections to a larger real estate fraud ring that targeted property in gentrifying neighborhoods. Stephanie had been working with developers who specifically sought properties owned by older residents in desirable locations. Bernard helped me establish a proper estate plan with ironclad protections. We set up a trust that would eventually transfer my house to Adam, but protected it from potential creditors or future partners. I also created a durable power of attorney and healthcare directive, naming both Adam and Janet as co-agents, requiring them to act jointly on my behalf if I ever became incapacitated. Adam found a new job in software development, rebuilding his career from the ground up. He moved temporarily into my spare bedroom during his recovery, our roles reversed, as I now supported him through his healing journey. Those months of close proximity allowed us to rebuild trust slowly, one honest conversation at a time. The local senior center asked me to speak about my experience, which led to my developing a workshop called Protecting Yourself from Predatory Relationships that I now teach monthly. I've helped 3 other seniors recognize similar situations since starting the program. 6 months after Stephanie's arrest, she accepted a plea deal for 8 years in prison rather than face a trial where all her previous victims would testify. The real estate developer who had been working with her also faced charges, and my house remained safely in my name. Adam eventually moved into his own apartment and began cautiously dating again this time, with a much clearer understanding of healthy relationship boundaries. Our Sunday dinner tradition resumed now with an added layer of appreciation for what we had almost lost. Last week, as we sat on my back porch enjoying the early summer evening, Adam asked the question that had clearly been weighing on him. "Do you think you'll ever fully trust me again, Mom?" I took his hand, noting how the healthy color had returned to his face, how his eyes were clear and present. "I never stopped trusting the real you, Adam. I just couldn't reach him for a while. I should have been stronger." "We're all vulnerable sometimes," I told him. "The question isn't whether we fall, but how we get back up. And you've gotten back up with courage and honesty." As I reflect on our journey, I realize the most important lesson isn't about watching for obvious scams or reading legal documents carefully, though those are certainly important. The deeper lesson is about maintaining independence even within loving relationships, trusting our instincts when something feels wrong, and understanding that love without respect and boundaries isn't really love at all. I still live in my house of 40 years, tend my garden, and enjoy my retirement. Adam comes for dinner every Sunday. We've both been changed by what happened, but not broken. If anything, our bond is stronger for having been tested and restored through truth and healing. If you've experienced something similar or know someone who might be vulnerable, please share this story. Has anyone in your life ever tried to take advantage of your trust or property? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button so others can learn from these experiences too. Remember, sharing these stories helps protect our community. Thank you for listening, and stay safe out there.